Alright, hello. Now, I've been working on solving the Hateforge problem with the Vaal Lightning Strike for the past few days. So, with this enchant, obviously this fixes your Vaal Lightning Strike spam while mapping. You just need that enchant and you'll go ham, and that'll be super fine. You can spam as much as you want while killing mobs. The problem is single target. You can't do that because obviously you don't get enough souls single target. So the way you do that is you would use Hateforge, which converts it to Rage. Problem with that is that it costs a lot of rage and you need a bunch of rage regen, and with a new rage system that's kind of tricky to get. So I've been trying to solve that without giving up mage blood. I know there's a system, there's a setup where you use chains of emancipation and a ring, and then you sort of it self toggles off temporal chains and that'll max out your rage all the time. That is a system you can do, but you're giving up a mage blood for that, or a headhunter, or whatever belt you want to use, and that is a big cost, I think. So I don't want that to be a thing. So I've been racking my brain in order to solve this without giving up mage blood, and I think I have. So I figured let's just do a demonstration here. So here's my character. Let's go into the tier 17 fortress here. This is 60% deli, I believe. I don't know what mods on here. I don't know. There's some damage mods and shit. But yeah, we're at the boss here. So figured let's just go and sort of show you the concept here. So you go here, and then you do this, then you do that, and now you start crashing your PC. So yeah, you do this, and it ramps up, and he's dead. So, and also you can see the game doesn't like it after a certain point. But yeah, so this shit works pretty well, huh? All right. So let me show you sort of what I've been doing. So I'm using Vengeful Cry. Now Vengeful Cry is a new war cry added this patch. It's a retaliation skill, which is also a new thing. You can't use it until you take a savage hit, in which case it becomes usable. And then you can use the war cry. So you can see that the war cry grants you 3 rage per second per 5 power, counting up to a maximum of 25 power. So the power system, if you're not familiar with war cries, is just sort of it just means that if you're crying next to a bigger enemy, you get more power and the buff becomes stronger. So if you're crying next to a boss, I believe it gives 20 power. It's like a unique enemy, which obviously isn't the max 25 there, but we can max that out, and I'll show you here in a bit how we do that. But yeah, so baseline at max power, this thing gives you 15 rage per second, and then it also gives you 25 to max rage, which is a nice little boost. But of course, the reason why this is so good right now is because there's a bunch of new nodes on the tree that scale it. So there's a bunch of these Warcry buff effect nodes. I'm getting these right here, I'm getting this wheel right here, well, a quarter of the wheel, I guess, and then I'm noting this node right here. I could get more, but I think this is a good little compromise of which nodes to take. So this, alongside some other sources of Warcry effect I'll show you here in a bit, serves to basically double this effect, a little bit more actually. I think right now, currently I'm getting about 33 rage a second when I use the full setup for this. So this 33 rage a second, my skill right now costs 15. You could reduce this a little bit, but I've chosen not to invest in that. Maybe I'll do that later, but yeah, so this costs 15, so it's about 2 and a bit. Given that there's also a bit of rage on hit, so if the strike connects, then that gives you a bit of rage. So 2 and a bit Vaal Lightning Strikes per second, and they last for about 10 seconds, as you can see there, the duration. So, you know, 21, 22 Vaal Lightning Strikes out at once is basically what the idea here is right now with my current setup, and that is a lot of damage. So how are we proccing this then? Since I said, you can only use this when you take a savage hit, which is a hit that deals 15% or more of your health. Obviously, you don't want to have just rely on enemies to do that, because that is clunky and would feel really bad. So we are self-proccing it. I think there's only really one way of self-proccing a savage hit, and that is by using its Forbidden Rite. So this is just a spell that has some damage, but it also makes you take 40% of your maximum life and 25% of your max energy shield as chaos damage, and this counts as a hit. So if this combined deals more than 15 or more percent of your max HP, that'll be a savage hit, and that'll proc your Vengeful Cry. So that is the idea there. Now, the problem I had with this setup, because I've been trying to make this work for a few days now, the Vengeful Cry setup. Obviously, the interaction made sense and works fine. It's just that Corrupting Cry hit never did enough damage to savage hit me, because I was always Chaos Threat capped, and I was always tanking enough to where this got mitigated now to where it wasn't a reliable savage hit. Because I could get it, I could very easily, even a few days ago, I had this setup where just sitting in my hideout, whatever, I could savage hit myself with it just fine. But then when you go into map and you have all these conditionals up, you have Progenesis up, which gives you, max out your Chaos Res if you're not already maxed, and then gives you mitigation on top of that. And then you have like the Slayer node, which if you're leeching, you get reduction from that. And like there's a bunch of random sources of DR on this character that it made it very difficult to self-proc the savage hit. And that's sort of was where I left it, and I didn't really figure anything out post that, unfortunately. But now I think we've figured something out here. So what I've got right here is, first of all, this is like the clearing setup where right now I ended up this is like a temp ring, doesn't have, I kind of want a ring with like 40-ish more chaos res, because right now we're sitting at like 18-ish%, which isn't, I'd rather have like 40-50, I think, with a setup that would let me self-proc very easily while mapping and still be pretty tanky to chaos damage. But for now, I'm just doing this temporary setup to demonstrate. So for the mapping, I just have it in the 16 right here, and I'm just using it together with the minimum power thing here to where now if I savage hit myself and then proc it, you can see I'm getting enough rage to put basically 1 down every second. It's almost exactly that, I think, and that is plenty enough to clear properly, especially if you just want to throw some regular lightning strikes in there as well during mapping. That's super fine. And yeah, that's great. But for single target, obviously, you want to juice up even more. So what we're doing for that, and you saw me do that during the gameplay there, is we're weapon swapping. So weapon swap has a bunch of interesting aspects to it, right? So I said the problem with self-hitting was that sometimes you just get too tanky and you mitigate too much of that hit, and there's no real way, as far as I know, to scale the damage the Forbidden Rite deals to you, because it's just like flat lines on the text. I don't think there's any real support gem or anything to increase that, unfortunately. So we have to just either not have any chaos threads, which I don't really like that much, or like drop Progenesis. Progenesis was like the main thing, where if I dropped this, I could easily do it, but it's just such a good flask, I don't want to drop it, you know? But the way we made this work is I crafted this daggers. This is like the start of an island dagger. Basically, I have the prefixes here and then the suffixes I haven't been able to finish just yet. But I've put this unveiled strength int crit mod on there. Now, usually what you do on this sort of weapon is you get the Shaper or the Elder, I forget which one it is, but one of the influence mods that gives you socketed gems are supported by increased crit strikes for the crit, and that is quite a bit better than that mod. But I need the strength int because I've set this up in a way such that since I'm weapon swapping, I'm losing those stats when weapon swapping, and that makes some of my gear, you know, unusable. It shuts them off basically and makes me squishier. That's the idea here. So you can see that when I'm weapon swapped, I have 3 fewer strength than I need, and that shuts off my chest. Right now, the chest I'm shutting off is not actually the ideal. I think the boots of my current setup would be ideal to shut off because they give a bit of chaos res, so that would make me extra squishy. So I might swap some gems around. You can use this strategy in order to selectively disable gear when you're weapon swapping, in order to make yourself squishier and guarantee a savage hit even with, you know, all these DRs or whatever, by just like basically undressing yourself when you weapon swap, sort of. I think it worked really well, and it's kind of I think it's a neat setup. And the weapon swapping has a bunch of other benefits as well, because we get to use red blade banners. So when I swap here, I have this shield on. This shield gives Warcry's infinite power, so you know that up to 25 power there is always going to be maxed when you're doing this. So during the single target setup, it's always going to be max buff effect. And then also using this claw just has a bunch of random shit on it, but then also it gives you 25% increased Warcry buff effect, so that's another little extra bit of juice. So you can see that once I'm weapon swapped here, if I use my thing and then proc it, and you see now I'm getting a bunch of rage, and you can just like swap over, and now you can just spam as much as you want, like a crazy amount. You can see it's not even touching it yet. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's like it really works quite well. So yeah, like in gameplay, all you have to do is run around, and then you web swap, do that, and then swap back, and then you can just do that. Like, I know POE players hate pushing buttons, but I think this works super smoothly and is a really neat solution without giving up too many gear slots, because really you're not giving up any gear slots really for this. The only gear we're putting on is in the weapon swap, and minimum passive point investment is really only, you know, this cluster and then the anoint. So it's really not that huge of a deal. I am investing in scale effectuation here because that scales Vaal Lightning Strike and also increases the buffs length, which is nice. But yeah, it's really nice because, again, the other setup with Chance of Emancipation and the ring, it works well, but you have to you have to invest in mana regen for Chainbreaker. You have to give up the Timeless Jewel, so you can't use something like Tempered by War to get tanky. You have to give that up in order to get Chainbreaker. You also have to give up the belt slot, which is huge. There are so many good belts in the game, varying in different budget levels, and you have to give up a ring slot, which is probably the least of those things, but still a powerful slot. So you don't have to do any of that, and you still get to spam Vaal Lightning Strike. Like, while mapping, you know, have it going pretty well while mapping, just fine, and then even after that, while single target, you can spam like crazy and do hundreds and hundreds of millions of DPS, theoretically. As for whether or not the game can handle it, you know, that's up to, you know, who knows, but I guess I'll try and stress test that. But yeah, so that's the current setup. I think it works really well, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. I just put this together, and I just wanted to post a video because I'm kind of excited about it. I'm happy about how it works. I've been trying so hard to get Hateforge to work. I've POB'd multiple ascendancies, multiple classes. The past 3 days have just been, I've been stuck at this. I leveled a Marauder for no reason because I thought that would work, but it didn't turn out. Yeah, it's been quite the journey, but I think this shell is something I'm going to keep building on, and I think it's very cool. Yeah, I think this is the way to go, at least with this character right now, because it lets you have a really tanky, really good character while still spamming Vaal Lightning Strike and getting that crazy burst. So yeah, that's super cool. I'll, you know, be live on stream and show this off. The upcoming days, probably after this video is posted, I'll probably be on, if you're curious. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, thanks for watching. I'll have more on this in the future. There's definitely other tech on this character right now that juicing it up that I think is very cool. all the items are spiking, so unfortunately it's also very high investment right now. Yeah, like stuff like this Blind Visions are going crazy, but that's the way with leagues, I suppose. But yeah, all right. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more stuff in the future. Very fun league.